A few months ago, I brought you guys the top 5 best heroes for all players in Idle Heroes, and that got me thinking, well, I've given you a top 5 best, so why not give you the top 5 worst heroes in Idle Heroes, the heroes you completely want to avoid and do not want to build at any stage in the game? And I spoke with my patrons about this on Patreon, and we set a few ground rules. First off, if a hero has a 4-star or lower form, it doesn't get counted on this list. We're only looking at 5-star heroes that can go all the way up to E5. Now, there is one key exception to this, which will be mentioned later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, with this rule established, it also made picking heroes quite difficult, because actually a lot of the heroes which we consider food do have a usefulness at least at some stage in the game, whether it's early on at the beginning, whether it's useful just to take advantage of CC. In Seal Land, there are heroes that can do at least something that synergizes with teams. It doesn't mean that it's brilliant, but it can mean that some heroes actually have a small amount of viability. So it was very difficult to pick the best 5, or should I say, the worst 5 heroes in the game, because at least some hero at some point has a usefulness. So who is the worst? Who has such limited scope that they're so bad that they make it to this list? Well, let's find out. But before we find out, I want to mention first Iragon, who's decided to back me on Patreon. Now, the great thing about Patreon is you can pledge to help me produce more content, and in the meantime, you guys get some great rewards, such as an exclusive chat on Discord available for people to get in touch with me a lot easier and to discuss some stuff that doesn't normally get discussed in the Idle Heroes community. So if you guys want to get access to that exclusive chat and conversations and other such things as well, go check out the Patreon link down below or in the top corner of the screen. Anyway, with all that out the way, let's check out today's video. Now, before we get into the top 5, let's give a shout out to some of the honourable mentions, the heroes that you may expect to see in a top 5 list for being terrible, but actually they have some tiny itty bitty bit of usefulness that makes them not quite top 5 worthy. One that might surprise you is Lord Balrog, a hero who is often regarded as damn terrible, but actually his active skill at 10-star is able to heal a random ally and boost their attack by 60%. And often when you're looking for a filler hero, one that can benefit your team basically by making your good heroes better, is often what we need, because most of the time a filler hero isn't good enough to stand out on their own, so having some element of support is useful. Balrog's active skill gives us just this, which means healing plus a boost in attack is actually okay. Now next I'm going to mention Guster. He actually has fairly good CC, and when you get him to 10-star he can counterattack and do some really interesting stuff, so actually go check out what a 10-star Guster can do, because it actually surprised me. He's actually quite good. Not brilliant, and I would never build him, unless of course you do want that 10-star Guster profile picture, which I have to say is one of the more popular ones, so actually maybe a 10-star Guster just hands down looks so cool that you should probably build it. Some other heroes that I want to mention come from the Fortress faction. We've got Mickey, who used to be incredibly good, and then they changed how block worked, because it used to be dodge, which meant you took no damage, which we can see Carry having, which is insanely strong, and then they decided it was too OP, so they changed it, and it made Mickey go from amazing to not so very good. But actually, unfortunately, Mickey's one of those heroes that is cusp, could be on this list, but the other heroes are just slightly worse. Fat Moo is a hero that you might expect to see as well, but actually his burn synergizes with Phoenix, so just by default he's quite good, and therefore Dragon Slayer, I'm going to say the same thing. Any hero that has burn, and consistent burn of that, because Fat Moo and Dragon Slayer, when they get hit, they burn back, and that actually means consistent burn, which also means Phoenix synergy. So at the end of the day, when I'm always saying in PvE you want a Phoenix, you gotta look at your Fat Moo and Dragon Slayer and kind of buckle and say, you know what, yeah, they actually do something. Bleaker is a hero that might surprise you. Bleaker is a hero that should probably be on this list, but my patrons were determined that he didn't make it for one simple reason. Seal Land. When Bleaker dies, he can stun opponents, and that's actually quite useful in Fortress Seal Land, so Bleaker doesn't make the list. And finally, 2 heroes from the Shadow faction you might expect to see here, Bade and Dominator. 2 heroes that are famed for being arguably the worst heroes in the game. At points people have argued they were the worst. Bade was notoriously the worst, but Bade got reworked and isn't actually terrible. In fact, I'd go so far as saying he makes a decent first 10-star. And that's painfully hard for me to admit. Same goes for Dominator. Dominator has so much self-heal that actually he can get through stages of PvE that other heroes wouldn't be able to, and that heal actually means he's viable in Aspen Dungeon at 10-star, and a hero that can do Aspen Dungeon is a hero that sounds good to me. So actually, Dominator as an early 10-star is not a bad hero. He sucks before getting to 10-star, but actually when he starts being able to freeze and all that heal that comes along with him as well, he's actually not terrible. So there you go, guys, that's the honorable mentions. And if these heroes are bad, which they are, who is so bad that they made top 5? Let's find out. In at number 5, we have the hero who I hate the most. It's Margaret. Now, initially this hatred grew from Tower of Oblivion, where many of you will have faced Margaret's and struggled because her poison is persistent and gets very annoying when you're facing a whole army of her, all of which are giving you damage over time, and it can be very difficult for early players. However, this doesn't mean Margaret's good, it means she's annoying when the enemy's using her. If you've ever tried to use a Margaret, you'll know she's damned awful. For some reason they have given her CC, which originally is kind of like, oh, alright, that could be good. But unfortunately it's limited to only being effective against poisoned enemies. Now, I hate giving CC limitations because it already has a ridiculously low chance of happening because control immunity is everywhere, so the added limitation that it has to be a poisoned enemy just makes it even worse. Okay, sure, she has consistent poison, but poison is the worst damage over time in the game. Bleed is great with Wolf because Wolf has armor break and so many other good things in PvE. Phoenix heals, which makes Phoenix probably the best PvE/PvP hybrid monster. So why would anyone want to run Poison? Because Snake is just a worse version of Wolf, and therefore Poison is not a good thing to have. Ever. I mean, I'd rather have Burn or Bleed. So, sorry, Poison is the worst damage over time. Her stun is situational. She's just bad. Not to mention she has the lowest health stat of any 5-star hero in the game. Don't use Margaret, she sucks. In at number 4, we find the heroes that you should probably start expecting here. Milazzo. Let's start off with her. Milazzo is a hero that may have one redeemable ability, and that's the ability to reduce speed. The rest of her stuff is all based around poison, which we've already established is terrible, so let's focus on this speed thing for a moment. Nakia is a hero who can reduce speed. Nakia clocks in at 1218 speed in her 10-star form, and that is fast. Nakia is a speedy girl, and speed means that you're going to outspeed the opponents and slow them down, which is a good thing. It means you're going to outspeed carries, again, a great thing. So why the hate for Milazzo? Well, Milazzo's speed clocks in at 1140, which is excruciatingly slow, which means her speed reduction isn't going to make a difference really until round 2. Also, you need to give her an energy artifact, unlike Nakia, who can be built with a speed artifact because it's Nakia's basic attack that slows down. Milazzo, it's her active skill, so needing to give her an energy artifact is going to slow her down even more. Further to this, Milazzo, because it's an active skill, means it can just get stopped by carries, and endgame is when speed reduction matters, and that means Milazzo is going to suck in endgame. Okay, will it be useful in mid-game or early game? Nope, because most people have such varied levels of heroes that speed is such a weird stat anyway, because the fastest hero is the highest level hero. That's pretty much how it works in early game. So basically, if you want a quicker hero, have a higher level hero. And if speed ties are really coming up in early game, well, you're already evenly matched with your opponents, so I doubt it's going to make that much of a difference. Just Milazzo is never good, and really, if endgame PvP is the only time that speed reduction is going to count, ask yourself, do you really want a Milazzo at endgame? No thank you. In at number 3, we have another one of the classic heroes you expect to find here, Mirage. Now, assassins already have a bad time because not a lot of people build them, so instantly that makes Mirage bad. What else does Mirage have that sucks? Well, unfortunately, Mirage has an active skill that targets 2 enemies. That's not a lot, and it's not got very exciting damage numbers on it. Basic attack targets the enemy with the lowest HP, and Ithaca came out, and she's got that limitation too. And actually, she does some really good damage, but she's still not very good at endgame. So now we have a hero that doesn't do very much damage at all, but is also limited to attacking the opponent with the lowest HP. That makes Mirage bad. Very bad. So bad, in fact, that he makes number 3 on the list. Now, in at number 2, You think Mirage is bad? Say hello to Mirage's lesser form. Faceless is everything Mirage is, but worse. And that's why Faceless makes it higher on the list, because Faceless has an attack that targets 2 backline enemies with lower stats. She has a basic attack that targets the enemy with the lowest HP, with worse stats. The only redeemable thing that Faceless has over Mirage is her passive bonuses, crit and crit damage. Mirage has block and attack, which is terrible. And Faceless has crit and crit damage. Okay, that's actually not terrible. The big thing that separates Mirage and Faceless, though, is the HP. Faceless is squishy as anything. Probably only Margaret can compete in the squishiness contest. Mirage, however, is clocking over 500k, which is normally not something to get excited about, but it's actually fairly good for an assassin. So actually, Mirage, you know, your health's okay. I guess that's good for you. But Faceless? Oh no. Faceless will just die. That's all Faceless is there to do. Just do not use a Faceless. Do not build a Faceless. Do not buy a Faceless from the guild coin store. Don't buy anything from the guild coin store for that matter. Just no. Faceless is bad. So now you can probably think to yourself, hang on a second, Faceless is number 2. What is so bad that it makes number 1 on the list? Well, let's find out. In at number 1, we have the only hero/heroes that managed to break my rule of being a hero that has to have a 5-star form that can be taken up to E3. However, there are 2 heroes in this game that are joint worst. Heroes that I will only mention by name: Dark Spirit and Divine Spirit. Now, why are these heroes bad? They're bad because I don't even want to look at their skills. And you shouldn't even consider their skills. Don't even look at these heroes. Don't even try to argue to me that they have abilities that are useful. It doesn't matter. The moment people online start suggesting that these heroes are okay, or even good, or even slightly usable, is when people start building them. And when people start building them, that's when terrible, terrible, terrible mistakes happen. Light and dark food is the hardest food to get your hands on. And if you, in your bizarre fantasy land, think that Dark Spirit and Divine Spirit are worthy of being brought higher than 6-star, you, my friend, are sorely, sorely mistaken. Because Dark Spirit and Divine Spirit have 4-star forms, and that means they can only go up to 9-star. And that means you can't get them to 10-star, which is when replacing actually can happen. I can forgive you for making a 10-star Gurk and then going, okay, maybe I should probably replace this into something a bit better, like an Ada. Well, you can't do that with Divine Spirit and Dark Spirit. You then have a big lump of very, very expensive food. And unfortunately, guys, if you take a hero to 7-star, you can't go back. You have to keep going up to 9-star because that's when you have to use them as food. So if you take a Dark Spirit or a Divine Spirit to anything higher than 6-star, they are completely useless and you're going to have to waste a load of materials to get them to 9-star to use them as food. Which, by the way, you should not do. You should just stare at them and go, well, I done made a mistake. Because they're going to stay at 7-star now, and that's all they're going to be good for. Just to stare at you and remind you about the massive, massive mistake you made, which was taking a Dark Spirit and a Divine Spirit over 6-star. Never do it. Never build these heroes. These heroes suck. Don't even look at their skills. Don't even try to argue that they're good, because that's when mistakes happen. Mention in the comment section down below, by the way, if you've actually done this, because I'm sure many of you have. Dark Spirit and Divine Spirit, just no. I could rant all day long and get absolutely mad, but I've seen so many accounts that have built a Dark Spirit or Divine Spirit higher than 6-star and been like, what do I do now? What you do is cry. That's the answer, guys. I'm so sorry, but it's a waste of dark food. It's a waste of light food. You could have built an Ada. You could have built a Tara. You could have a Carry or an Amun-Ra, but no, you decided to build a Dark Spirit or Divine Spirit instead. Whoops, you made a mistake. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the top 5 worst heroes in Idle Heroes. Never build these heroes unless, of course, you're building them to be used as food. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this informative, and I hope if you're a new player, this is going to help you not make the mistakes that so many of us have made in the past. If you've got any other heroes that you think should belong on this list, why don't you pop it down below in the comment section. If you think some of the honourable mentions deserve a place higher up in the list, why don't you let me know? I'm always up for discussions. If you want to catch more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and you can find some here on the side of the screen. And don't forget, guys, if you want to help me out and support me and get all the exclusive stuff available for Patreon users, you can back me on Patreon with the link in the description or up here in the top corner of the screen. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great week and happy idling.